Hey, how's it going? This is Georgia Truck Driver Nation, and what I want to go over today is going to be company dispatching versus being an independent freight dispatcher, and how this can actually benefit you or hurt you. Okay. So that being said, we're going to go through some of the points behind this and make it happen. So when you're talking about being a company dispatcher, that means you're actually working for a truck driving company, whatever their names can be. And I have to use my headset today because my audio is not picking up quite as well. But the whole point, if you're working as a company dispatcher, then that's what you're doing. You're working for somebody, whether they put a non-disclosure, a no compete, or whatever they're going to put on you, it really restricts you, and we'll go through that. The other one's going to be being an independent freight dispatcher, which I 100% support, but for the simple reason is, when people come to Truck Driver Nation Freight Dispatch Program or course, when I teach you how to become a freight dispatcher, I can give you the option since I'm a recruiter and we recruit for trucking companies, help drivers get jobs. Which at this point I'm really kind of highly against it to some degree, but it is the job that I do. So I give them the facts and it's your choice which direction you want to go because all I do is give you my opinion. And it's great that men and women do have the ability to say, hey, I want to go this way, or I want to go that way, and then I know what to present you. I try to stay objective. I don't get, too um, opinionated about what I'm thinking when I'm doing this because at the end of the day, it's your choice. You either want to be a freight dispatcher or you went and got your CDL and you want to continue on with the path actually being in the truck. So, but the point, what I'm wanting to cover, being versus being a company dispatcher versus an independent freight dispatcher is obviously which one's going to pay the most and offers greater freedom. Now, if you're considering a career in freight dispatching, you may be wondering why working for a trucking company or starting your own independent freight dispatching service, which one of these is going to be the better choice. Now, each path of these between these two choices, they do offer unique advantages and challenges. Now, I'm going to give you kind of a semi-detailed comparison between the, it'll help you kind of decide which option is going to suit you based, obviously on your lifestyle. Okay. Now, the potential, when we're talking about the two, company dispatcher versus independent dispatcher, on the company dispatcher side, you're going to pretty much well be looking at a fixed salary or an hourly income, just depending on that carrier, the way they've got it set up. Now, company dispatchers usually earn more or less a stable paycheck, but it's probably going to be 1099 with limited fluctuation in it. Now, this does provide you financial security as long as the carrier maintains itself and the overall profile as a driver, you're still making money, right? It often caps your earnings though, because you can't grow. You're under their basically you're under their thumb. I mean, I try not to be opinionated. I'm telling you, I try not to be, but that's the facts. Now you're probably going to do a commission potential, such when trucking companies they offer performance-based bonuses, so they might give you a base salary and then for X amount of dollars or whatever after that given rate, then they obviously get a performance bonus. Now these are they pretty much well, these are not, they're not going to be high up there to what an independent dispatcher can earn because that's going to be you're all in and all the rewards that come off the cake are yours. Okay. Now as an independent freight dispatcher, the earners are completely tied, not which are tied to performance, even with the trucking company. So remember that. But with your actual being an independent dispatcher, it's all tied to your performance or your team's performance, depending if you're leading a group of other dispatchers. Now, it usually you're going to run anywhere from 10% probably on down. You want to keep that rate down to the carriers a part of their overall gross revenue. Now, just remember when you're doing this, these percentages, if he's that owner operator has been dispatching themselves and they've been pretty much, well, all the money goes to them, right? But when you're actually being a dispatcher and you're dispatching yourself as a truck driver, I can tell you it ain't that damn easy because while I'm driving that truck during the day, I've got to actually function as my own dispatcher between those working hours and basically 9 to 5 to some degree, depending if you get up early. Okay. Really, you need to be up earlier to start doing your load, finding your loads. But I just use the reference of 9 to 5. If you're going to get up, depending on the time zone you're in, then that's going to be when you're actually hitting the boards, dealing with brokers, unless you got direct shipper access, depending on where you're going to drop off or wherever you're going to need to pick up. So, but when you're actually doing this gross revenue, for them to give you 10%, 8%, I wouldn't go below 7% because you do have to make a living. You can't just do 50 trucks, right? You're limited to roughly, give or take, 5 to about 10, maybe 12 trucks. So when you're doing this, you've got to, as a dispatcher, you need to know that you need to have the sourcing. And you can source this just by talking to people, okay? It ain't like this is magic. It's not neuroscience. So let's say, for example, that you're loading this truck for X dollars, depending on the type of trailer. You need to make sure that, I'm not going to say you offset all of it because there is a certain level of leverage that you just sometimes can't cover depending on that driver, because you're also dependent on their overall performance and activities. So if you're doing 10%, you want to do your best to knock as much of that 10% off that he doesn't feel that. Okay. You want to bring it down. That's the whole point. You don't want to say, hey, he's making $6,000. Now he's making $6,000. Now he's only making 5,400, because 10% of that 6,000 is now is going to you. So besides you loading that truck, what did you do for him? Okay. So you need to make sure that whatever you're doing, you're making that change in it, and you need to constantly change it. You need to absorb as much as that 10% in your efforts of getting good freight, so he doesn't see a big change in that. That's the whole thing, because why would I give you my money? Just to sit around and do what I'm already doing. It may be harder, but if I'm not seeing no big change and you telling me something you can or cannot do. So make sure you're honest with the owner operators. You rather not have a relationship with them than have a bad name out there. So now this structure often means that the income is directly reflect your numbers, that your trucks you manage, and the quality of the loads that you secure, right? Now the scalability, though, as an independent dispatcher can significantly increase their earnings by dispatching multiple trucks, 5 to 10. And this can result in far greater income than a traditional salary or as a company dispatcher. And also on the back end, if you want to source people, like say, for example, people that want to source through us, we hook them up with people that are actually skilled dispatchers. Now you can use Americans. That's totally 100% acceptable. That's our country. But if you're really a business person, that like most people are, and it's not just like this just fell out of the tree today, that you really need to outsource if you want to be profitable. So maybe you can bring down the percentages on the drivers that you got because you're sourcing as you scale. So I would scale the first 5 to 10 or whatever trucks at standard rates. But as you increase on those other ones, you can probably bring that back, because now your salary, your wages, what you got to pay out to your outsourced staff will be less, which means you can bring it down because they're sourcing. Because if they don't perform, you're throwing. I'm sorry, they know they got to perform too, because these guys are actually professional dispatchers. They know what dispatching is. But it depends. But also, I've learned over time, it also even depends on what they've been dispatching. So are they doing non-CDL? Have they got their hand into this and that? I just got done interviewing one that had dispatching and recruiting experience. So can you double use that if you see feasible, if it's needed for your particular setup? Because everybody operates their trucking companies differently. But when we're talking about the salaries, so we're looking at, and for a company driver, for a company dispatcher, you're probably looking at $800 to $1,200 a week. Okay. And that's going to be a fixed income, but whether they choose to give you bonuses based on what you've done, your performance or whatever, that's about what you're looking at. Okay. No crap numbers. And that's the reason I tell everybody, can you get somebody that pays you more? Absolutely. Depends on what you're bringing to the table. It ain't really called like a book of business like they do a brokerage, but it's kind of like your book of business. Who have you been dealing with? What kind of owner operators do you have? Do you have anybody that you're bringing on board? Who have you been dealing with as far as getting your freight? Has it been all coming from the low boards like DAT, Truck Stop, 123 Low Board, TQL, CH Robinson, etc.? Or have you been actually reaching out to direct shippers? And that aspect, that can change the difference in that overall company dispatcher position. Now, as an independent freight dispatcher, you're 100% dependent on that. Not just the regular everyday game of loading a truck, but your overall underlying performance, because you understand the market of what you need to do with your direct shippers or the drivers that you're dealing with. Okay. And how you're willing and dealing. Remember, you can say whatever you want to. It's not just dispatching, it's a hustle. How you playing your cards on the table. Okay. So for those, say, for example, if you're doing 5 trucks, 10 trucks, whatever it might be, if you're doing 5 trucks, for example, at 6,000, you're looking around $3,000 a week commission. That's what you're looking at. So, so keep that in mind when you're doing this. Obviously, 6,000 is going to be dry vans for the most part. It wouldn't make no sense to get paying that much money for a reefer, or step deck, or flatbed. But that's what you're looking at. So you're looking at a significant increase, but all the responsibility goes on your shoulders. So when I help you get started up as an independent freight dispatcher, you've got to ask me the questions. You know, I'm wanting to keep it real with you, okay? When you ask me the questions, look, I work for you, okay? It doesn't matter how you view it. You got to reach out and ask me the questions. I'm not telepathic. It ain't gonna happen. I don't give a rat's ass unless we get chipped up and then we sync up together because technology moves that far ahead. Right now, I ain't synced up with nothing. I'm synced up with logistics, just the way how it's actually used and how the performance goes. Remember, I'm a recruiter, so we still got our foot in the door of everybody. We hear the numbers. We talk to dispatchers. We talk to the business owners. We talk to the safety departments. So we need to know these things because remember, we do owner operators. So when I'm dealing with the owner operator and I'm bringing them into a carrier as a recruiter, we need to know the numbers. Well, how the hell am I going to recruit him if I don't know what's going on? So that's the whole point. But now, as far as let's move along, as far as the working environment when it comes to a company dispatcher, you're gonna pretty much have a set schedule. You're gonna be working at the company, whatever office or desk. Usually they don't let you work from home, but it's gonna basically be a 9 to 5 job, right? But yeah, that brings us some stability, but we'll go through. I'm not gonna bounce. But limited autonomy, very limited. You're gonna do what they say. You're gonna follow your company policies, dispatching strategies according to the way they've got it set up. Designated freight lanes, based if it's a company driver, lease purchase, lease rental, or owner operator. You're obviously you've left a lot less room for the personal decision making. Okay. They want you to be the parrot. Polly wants a cracker. Sit on the stool and you do what's needed. And you ain't really got no way to grow though, even sourcing and stuff, unless you can make a deal with them, the carrier itself, but what you can bring in, a lot of them don't want to hear it. They want worker bees. And if you're a great worker bee, well, that's probably a great position for you. But if you're actually interested in generate the revenue where it makes your day to day and your hour by hour more profitable, independent freight dispatcher, you ask anybody, everybody agrees, and there's no way around it. That's where you need to be. You got a flexible schedule because and let me back up a second with the company position as a company freight dispatcher, they're going to throw extra stuff on you. Sometimes they ain't got shit to do with freight dispatching, but you got to suck it up because you work for them. Okay. So just letting you know, it's not just going to be freight dispatching. All those unknowns are there. So on being an independent freight dispatcher, you are what you are and you're running the show the way you want to run it. As long as you got those numbers there, them boys ain't gonna care. They just want to get the freight on their truck so they can be profitable as well. Now, while dispatching requires staying available to manage loads, you have more control over your scheduling and day-to-day activity as an independent dispatcher. But because you got full control over it. Now you can assign with carriers where they as far as the dispatchers decide which carriers they want to work with. If you're dealing with the owner operator and your personalities just aren't compatible, see what you can work out. You don't want to run everybody off because you want to work with people, but maybe if it's not you, maybe you have another dispatcher you have on the back burner that you're making percentages off of them by them doing their job, being a dispatcher, but they're still more independent, because if you're working with me and I'm making money off you as a dispatcher, I'm not going to stranglehold you, but I can see what's going on. When you got long-term experience, you can read what's been moving around, and working with people that you don't want to work with. I mean, even as an independent person, you have to hold your tongues to be diplomatic. I'm sorry. I'm just saying that on the point that you need to do, but I'm not holding my tongues on nobody. I've dealt with racists, scumbags, whatever, carriers and everything else. So I'm not holding my tongue. I've been in logistics longer than they have. I don't owe them no favors. Maybe I don't get to work with them, but I guarantee you, everybody that crosses me because of their performance with me, I'm going to let them know. You don't want to do. And when I tell people you don't want to deal with them, if you want to deal with them, deal with them. I'm not your daddy, but I do know who's good and who's bad. So you can still experience it. and what you think is going to be a difference because your lovey rosy personalities coming through the door, they don't care about you. Okay, so when you're dealing with people, you got to make sure they have a personal interest involved in what you're doing as a freight dispatcher, and there's not a lot of leg room to move around. But anyways, also the freight lanes, you know, you can target those, make sure your owner operators or who you're dispatching for is going to want to be in those areas. You're negotiating rates. You can say yes, no, or whatever based on the setup that you've done with those given drivers to make sure you meet the minimum requirements that they're requiring on that based on that trailer. Now, the flexibility allows you to prioritize your clients that align with your business strategy. And so we're talking about the brokers or the direct shippers, either or. Okay. So keep that in mind. Now, client relationships, as an independent, as a company driver, you're typically responsible for managing the company's assigned drivers. Okay. Now, while the structure offers predictability, you may have little control over which drivers or trucks you're dispatching. Then puts you back again to that limited growth potential. Now, since you're tied to one company, your ability to expand your client base is totally restricted. But on the independent side, you can build your own network of independent dispatchers, actively develop a relationship with owner operators and small carriers. Now, this offers you the opportunity to expand your clientele, which increases your business, not your business income, your revenue, and your overall worth, and create a network of reliable drivers because that word's going to get around that you bust your butt for them, right? Now you get a higher earning potential by partnering with motivated owner operators and negotiating strong rates. You control your earning potential. Okay, that's the best thing about this. You're able to say, give them the reason. I mean, you know, just tell them if they're not meeting the market value or what you actually need for that truck. Just say, look, dude, you know, let's say example, okay, I need 1,300. We want to give 1,000. You got my phone number. You know the truck's there. The guy's ready to go. Hey, be there, pick it up today, or whatever the scenario might be. Get to the receiver on X date, and that we got all the equipment. You know, you can sit there and say, oh well, you know, I got great equipment. He's got a brand new truck. It's got a brand new trailer. That don't really matter to a lot of them, you know, unless it's a reefer, you know, something like that. They just want it moved. Okay, everybody says, oh, that performance of what? I don't think so. Okay. I've never had nobody. I mean, you got to look at your overall performance and your time in the industry. I've never had nobody, even when I was driving. Oh my gosh, George, you got a 379 Peterbilt that has that big of horsepower with the ability to lift that capacity. Well, we can do a lot of work together. They want that load, and they could care less if you fall off the map because there's, depending on the given region, there's other people looking for freight as well. But when you're negotiating the rate, you do have to get what you need for that given equipment, or you're going to lose your client, which is your owner operator, or if your small fleet, if somebody's got 2, 3, 5 trucks or whatever, and you're handling that for them as a freight dispatcher. Now, your expenses and your investment as a company dispatcher, companies dispatchers really don't have no investment. You know, they provide the software, the equipment, the operational resources, and there's no risk on the company dispatcher as far as any financial loss since you're already on a salary, right? So that's one of the, I guess you could say that's a good thing. But the thing is, the investment as far as a independent freight dispatcher is almost crap. I mean, you know, like for example, load boards. Now, if I'm dealing with owner operators and they've already got their MC, that covers my load boards. I get them to turn on the load board. Okay. So if they turn on their load board, I got that covered. I already have a CRM that I use between them and also a TMS. So that's that's going to be your customer relationship management software, and your TMS is going to be your transportation management system. And as far as your office setup and your internet services, you're already using that before you even call them. That's just your headset, bang, bang. Make sure you got a good headset. Headsets are super important when you're dealing with. You're wearing this damn thing like a set of antlers on a deer, right? Another thing is going to be your internet service. Make sure that whatever you do, if you're in a particular area, because I do deal with people outside the country, that you can hook your internet to a generator and it turns on the router so it goes to whatever satellite or dish or whatever that's covering that region so you don't get down. Because if you're doing some services, once that's down, you're out. And that's not good because them drivers don't want to, they don't care about all them excuses. I don't care. You can call them whatever. The only thing you can call them and tell them after service is gonna get back up is fuck. Because that's, you know, do you still have them or do you not? That's what you better hope on. As long as they were en route while you deal with it and didn't have no problems with their truck or their load, then you might be all right. But don't play around when I'm telling you about these things you need to have. And then obviously, your laptop. Now, your laptop and your phone, you need to have a really good phone and a really good laptop. You get what you pay for. And so, even when you're not in front of the computer, if you have to go out and handle something, you still got your phone. Everything's connected. Your phone's a computer. Okay. So, don't twist it up just because it's got the word phone hooked to it. That is a held hand computer. So, you got the ability. Now, it's a lot more time intensive to sit there and look for loads. You don't want to be out there looking for loads. You got somebody that's ready to go. You should have done already got up at the crack of dawn and been ready to go and looking for that freight. Because if you wait long, the freight prices go down, down, down. Because as the day goes along, all the loads are gone. Now you got still trucks sitting in cities. Now you're one of the ones sitting there nickel and diamond trying to find a load. But now, as far as the overall investment, now obviously with all those investments, now while the startup cost does exist, it's not substantial, but successful independent dispatchers can rapidly earn back their investment through commissions. Quick. That's the reason I teach you dispatching first. If you want to do recruiting and you want to do freight agent, that's fine. But I won't give you those first. You learn dispatching. I don't want nobody calling me, George, I didn't make no money this week. I don't know what to tell you, Jack. That's something wrong with that picture because you should have made money as a freight dispatcher. Money that's going in and out every day. Now, your growth potential as a company dispatcher, we're going over this. You have a limited growth path. So, in other words, it's going to be slow. You're talking about you going, oh, well, I recognize your abilities and you're really doing good. Let's move you up a little bit in this, whatever. Let me feed you some bird seeds. I'm not going that route. You only make money by having your own business. Not having your business, come on, think about it. If you're in the United States and you're from a country, think about how we operate. You only are successful if you own your own business because of the way the system works. If you're going to work for somebody, I really don't want to hear about it. You made that choice. You decide you want to come out of it and actually work for yourself, then get a hold of me because that's the only ones I'm really supporting. I'll get your job application, I'll get your resume, I'll send it to those carriers. The likelihood of them going to be very supportive, your worker bee at that point, okay? But if you like that, I'm 100% behind you. Don't twist that up though. I just want to see the best for you. Now, as an independent dispatcher, you really do. You have literally unlimited growth potential. As a dispatcher, you can scale your service, your business, by onboarding multiple carriers and building a team of dispatchers. The more trucks you manage, the higher your earnings. And that's all. I'm going to leave it straight at that. I'm not going to add nothing else to it. You want to make the money, that's where you have to be. And you believe me, you can get people in there. You're looking for good lieutenants, so you can get people in there that are going to help you grow because you don't need to conquer the kingdom. Okay, so make sure you spread the wealth when it comes to this because you don't want your people suffering. Then they're going to recognize that your acknowledgement of their skills. Now, stress and responsibilities. Everybody loves this one because we all got it. We live and breathe it, right? Gotta love that stress. Seems like I'm married to it myself. But under the company dispatcher, it's slow. You're throwing that all off onto the dispatch coordinator or manager or fleet manager, whoever they got in there that's actually running the dispatch. Because in companies, some of them run more than one position because of their knowledge base. So keep that in mind. The marketing services, maintaining the business expenses, they're all primarily going back on that carrier. Now, since company dispatchers are paid, a set salary, income is steady regardless of whatever performance. Not saying they won't fire you, but they already they don't expect a lot out of you. Okay. They know they'll look at you and they know what to expect out of you once they see your performance. And that's going to be the way they gauge you. It is definitely a reflection and the respect that you actually earn based on your skill set. So don't think you're going to go in there and ride it and you're going to turn out good. It's not going to work out like that. As an independent dispatcher, greater responsibility, of course, greater responsibility, greater rewards. So you're going to be handling basically all the aspects from marketing to client retention to negotiating rates and problem solving, because that's the biggest thing you are as a freight dispatcher. You might as well quit calling yourself a dispatcher and go and start calling yourself a problem solver, because that's exactly what you are. And the variant of more problems you solve, the better you get, the more fluent it becomes, and the easier it becomes on you. But the stress level is always there because you're always performing. If you don't have a good team, if you got a good team, you spread that out and learn how to um, delegate tasks so it don't pull down on you so much. But even at the end of the day, you need to have the data coming your way to see what everything's looking at because people can undermine you. just in their inability or ability to do whichever one they think they're slick, Rick, or they just ain't getting off their butt, and you have to throw them out the door. I did you go, but you're wasting my time, and you're dragging me down, so you're dragging the whole company down, the whole team down. Now, higher pressure, it does at higher rewards. Now, while the stress can be greater, independent dispatchers have direct control over their financial growth. That's the whole thing. Money, money, money. Okay. So the whole point behind all this is, if you prefer stability, a structured schedule, a minimum financial risk, and working with a trucking company dispatcher, you want to go. That's the way you want to go. Now, if you're motivated and you're and you're good at having high earning potential, your sales skills, it's not sales skills even really. They got to get the load on the truck. It's your ability to get the data, get it to them, get the loads to them, basically, okay, and help them perform well. Then you're going to perform well, and it's going to reflect on you, and you will grow. Now, that type of stuff does take time, but your immediate clients, people that you're dealing with, will respect that, and they will pass the work because everybody knows somebody. Okay. But you do have the freedom to grow your business as big as you want. And obviously you're going to see those a lot better financial rewards. So when you're thinking about these two paths, the whole thing is us as Truck Driver Nation, for what we do for you, you can pick out whichever path you want to. We are here to support your desire, whichever way, left or right, pick it. I'll help you get there. But in the aspect of somebody's been in logistics a long time, I would highly, highly, highly emphasize that you really focus or look at being an independent dispatcher. Okay. If I've got people that were totally insecure, they were hurting, they just didn't know which way their head was, what was up and down, right? But some of them turned out to be really good. They got the game down. There's only so many moving parts. So it ain't, like I said, I'm not gonna make it longer. There's only so many directions you can go with this, okay? Once you get the platform down of understanding what you do, and then you as drivers, you know more than what you know. I feels like that should be the name of my business. You know more than what you know, because you do, So get a hold of me at Truck Driver Nation. Okay. Go to the website, truckdrivernation.com. Send me an email if you need to, support@truckdrivernation.com, or give us a call, 210-343-1118. 210-343-1118. And don't come through the door afraid to ask those questions. You need to ask me everything that you need to ask me, because these folks that you're going to be dispatching are dependent that you really are motivated and you care about their future as well. But anyways, I hope this helped everybody, and this gave you some information on making a choice between being a company dispatcher and an independent dispatcher. And but if you have any more questions or something I didn't cover in this, please just let me know. We'll go over it, because I cover a lot of each topic, but sometimes there's stuff that just doesn't come through my head. I'm focusing on that narrow strip. That's the reason I have so many different videos, because if I give you too long of a message, it just starts going in one ear and out the other. So, but anyways, I appreciate your time. Everybody be safe. Drivers out there, be careful out there. If you need our services, remember it's Truck Driver Nation. Give me a call. We can have a discussion about your equipment, about your trailer, what lanes you want to run, what you've been experiencing, and I'll just give you the straight no shit assessment whether I can fix your problem and be a benefit to you. I want to be an answer, not a problem. You know what I mean? So, but anyways, thank you so much. Everybody be safe. Have a great one, and we will talk to you soon.